Without further ado, let's get started. Hello and welcome to everyone. You guys are here for Sales Intel and Chronologic's webinar, How to Double Your Pipeline with 2 Process Changes. And today's speakers are myself, Ariana Shannon from Sales Intel. I'm the Director of Marketing here. And then we also have Scott Logan, VP of Marketing from Chronologic.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right, let's get going. So today we're going to cover a couple of topics. First of all, how to never talk to cold leads again, how to replace prospecting completely with a calendar first methodology. We'll get into what that is if you don't already have an idea. And then what the 2 changes are, what the 2 things are. We're not going to bury the lead. Don't worry, it's not at the end. We're going to get right to it. So when you're going through sales, it's all about when to meet. Cold outreach isn't going away. We know that, but we just have to do 2 things to get it better. So when is all about putting and leveraging buying signals and intent data to understand when someone is a good fit, and then putting an emphasis on your calendar to encourage that meet time. So really bringing in the intent that you're not seeing and then getting them on the calendar as soon as possible. And believe it or not, we've been doing this for a while. Like, intent has been here. If you go all the way back in the day when we were doing barter and trades, like in the marketplace, if you were in the market, you had intent. You were there to buy something more times than not. And then as we continued along our sales processes, as strategies evolved and as technologies evolved, we kind of lost intent along the way. You've got the always be closing mentality, which is high activity. But if people aren't interested, then you're going to have a high call to connect ratio, and those aren't good. You're always trying to get those as small as you possibly can. So now what we have is the ability to leverage these digital intent signals and meet online. So it's much easier to understand when buyers are ready and then get them on the calendar. If you have an internet connection, you can get in touch with them in one way or another. And for those who don't know a little bit about intent signals, these are kind of everywhere you've been going. And they're even used in today's tech stack for a lot of us, especially in the data space, that understand these things. So in today's tech stack, intent data can be built throughout. So when you're starting and when you're leveraging all these things, intent data can be as simple as they filled out a bottom of the funnel form. That means they did pricing or they did a demo. Or if you're going more strategic, it can be higher, and you're actually saying, okay, who are these people searching for? Are they actively searching for my competitors? Are they actively searching for things in my industry? Or are they visiting my website and then just not filling out a form? And then you can retarget from there. So from the beginning, understanding the level of intent of your buyer throughout the process, and then you can apply that into your awareness and promotion, add it into your engagement systems and through your data enrichment and into your Salesforce. And thankfully, a lot of this has been automated for us. It's just knowing that intent is something that you need to understand, but then also understanding what levels you need, because not all intent data is created equal. But even with all this automation, and even if we have the intent, things can still fall through the cracks a little bit. And Scott, I'll pass this back over to you to go into what that is.
Yeah, so over my career, I've built up all sorts of tech stacks that apply to the business that I'm running demand gen for. And it is awesome because less than a handful of people can create an infrastructure that can get the right people with the right intent skills through a series of ads and emails and other channels to be able to get someone to the point of sending them over to the sales team. However, all we've done up to this point, and it's great, we use this set of automation tools too with sales engagement, is prioritize tasks with lead lists. It just starts and stops with that on the sales side. So the sales engagement process is very manual. It takes a lot of time, and it only gets you to that first connection, even with the email component of it. After they reply, it's then up to the SDR, the AE, or whomever it is managing that sale to take it from there. Once you get on the phone, it may even take one or two conversations or an email string because of how the call is handled to get the call after you, or get the meeting booked, the discovery or the demo meeting booked, once you've started that conversation, which adds all sorts of delays. And if the intent is there, it adds unnecessary delays when both of you just want to have that discovery meeting, that in-depth meeting, not a surface level touch point back and forth a bunch. And if the intent isn't there, then what you've done is you've wasted and burned a lot of your valuable time, which you have very little of, which is why, deal quotas are set the way they are. And you've burned that time with someone who doesn't want to buy, who you find out doesn't have that intent. So there's got to be a better way to scale it and get that yes or no faster.
Yeah, and I love when you're talking about the manual component of it too, and I'll go ahead and move to the next slide for us. But really, when you're talking there, the manual process is not going away. We still need people. We still need to qualify a lot of the stuff that's going on. But with that, anything we can do to help expedite what we're doing to make things easier is always great. So what have you guys been doing to kind of solve that last mile problem?
Yeah, so we call it the last mile problem. They say logistically and cost wise, it's more efficient and easier to get something from Shanghai to Atlanta than it is to get it from the distribution center in Atlanta to someone's home in the suburbs. It just takes a lot more effort, which is what it is here. It is a good amount of effort, but we've become efficient at getting the lead to sales and then getting that meeting on the calendar to develop that pipeline. There's a lot of loss there. There's what we call opportunity deficit or opportunity debt, where because of the number of tasks for the hundreds of leads that are being processed, and when marketing is being told more, that means thousands of more tasks on hundreds of more leads for the team. And I don't blame sales reps, because I've managed SDR teams and been an SDR for a number of years early in my career. And what am I going to do to hit my number? I'm going to cherry pick. I'm going to go, I know I can sell to that person from that lead source, and this small list is what I'm going to do to manipulate my day and organize my day so that I can hit my number. What that happens on the marketing's perspective, though, is that you're not following up with all my leads, you're not driving the pipeline that is there, and you get this fallout. And everyone's trying their hardest, and everyone's doing their job, and everyone's doing a good job at doing their job. The problem is this last mile causes that lost opportunity on a lot of really quality hard work.
Yeah, no, because they want to be chasing the best leads possible. And in order to get them, to get that meeting with them or to connect with them, it takes a lot of time. Which is why I was really excited when you were talking to me about this calendar first approach. And I'll go ahead and put this up there for anyone that wants to read it. But the idea of going ahead and pushing that intent to say, hey, let's just get on the calendar and talk.
Yep. So we've come up with this term, calendar first, and we define it as the automated sending of calendar meeting invites at scale, using AI-based time negotiation to book revenue-focused meetings with no human intervention. So I kind of mentioned this before, where the folks on the other end who have the intent to buy, you align to the challenge that they're trying to solve. They have an idea through the 65% of the sales cycles done before a sales rep gets engaged. They already kind of know that you're an option for them. And what we're doing is we're putting ourselves, the buyers and the sellers, through this motion of let's just get that connection going and take the time it needs to get the meeting on the calendar, because and optimizing that, because that's the only way we've ever thought of it before. But what we are saying is let's just send them the calendar invite, and not just a random invite Ariana meet with Scott this date and time, but it's a calendar invite that has context to it. It relates to the reason that you're reaching out to them in the first place, whether it be from a virtual trade show booth conversation or a webinar or whatever it is, a case study download, and then creating an agenda in that meeting invite that says, here's what we're going to go over. Here's the value, the questions we need to discuss. Here's the value that I will provide. And then here's what we're going to do afterwards. And when you do that, we're finding that you can, one, automate that process in order to get that yes or no right away within a matter of 1 to 2 days, 3 days max. And then you don't waste time chasing people who are going to say no. And you said chasing leads. We're trying to eliminate the chasing leads part of the job, right? And that's the part that everyone hates. Salespeople love being in those conversations. They hate chasing those conversations down. So we just put it right in front of them. And what we're seeing is that buyers find it easier because it's a one-click accept. They see an invite come in, it looks different than an email, and they see the context you're adding, and they say, yes, that is something I want to do. And it's immediate. It's right at the peak of their interest. It's not as fast as your SDR can block time out to get to that call and then land the conversation, which is probably going to be a couple days later. If they're lucky, maybe they have those top people in the top part of their list for that 1 hour of call block that they have for that day. That's the challenge we're up against. So you can do this at more scale, and that intent is more in front of you.
Yeah, so then you kind of touched on it a little bit. Let's go ahead and get into that anatomy of how does this actually work? And again, it goes back to, first of all, knowing the intent of people that are coming through. And that can be through trusted data providers. There are intent signals and companies that you can partner with that will provide that data to you. If they are showing buying signals, which means they're interacting with your website, they're talking to your team, or visitor intel being more of a new element to it as well, which is they're coming to your website, they're visiting, but they're not really interacting in some way. So that says I'm here and I'm poking around, but I'm not ready to commit just yet. So if you can take these signals and then put them into your CRM, and then what you do when you have your calendar first approach, it pushes all the people that are already showing these high levels of intent that are more likely to accept the meeting. That's the key component there. And then ideally, hopefully, your calendar is going to start looking like this. As Scott said, you're going to get more and more people coming through with accepted leadings to have that one-click experience. And then your team is spending more time prepping for these conversations rather than saying, okay, where are my tasks? Who do I need to email next? Where am I in my sequences? You just get to the primary goal, which is shortening that sales cycle.
Yep, that's exactly right. And the point of it is not to throw this at cold leads. You want to make sure that you're using that intent data properly. Your marketing team, if not the sales team having visibility into it, knows what engagement levels they have. Right now your sales sequences include that context already. So why not just put it in front of them in a way that makes sense? We were having a few questions on the agenda and what that calendar looks like. Do you want to, we have a bit of time. I can just quickly cover over what that looks like if you want to click to 13.
Sure. Here, let me do that real quick.
So this is like a bonus slide that we were going to add if it came up, and it did. So thanks for the questions there. This is what we call the anatomy of not a great, but a valuable meeting invite. You want to make sure that you put the company name that you're coming from and the type of meeting. And when we say type of meeting, are you offering like you say you're an IT software company or a security software company, and you're like, we want to do a cloud audit that provides this value, or if it's a company that is well known that you work for, that you have your own vernacular. I can't remember the name of the company, but they have like a schema review where IT people know what that means, and you can put that in there, utilizing, because they know who you are, if you're reaching out to them, utilize some of that context that's maybe native to your brand that they may be aware of, and that can trigger a positive emotional reaction to getting value from this meeting. It's not just going to be a 30-second quick qualification pitch.
Yeah.
And so what we do here is you do that, and then in the body, you say, here's the value statement of what I'm going to provide, a pointed question, which is, here's the main question that I want to discuss. The hot take is something that they may not even agree with. Maybe it's something that pushes the limits. Maybe, like for me, it would be, do you think sending a calendar invite as your primary or initial outreach could double your pipeline? We're finding for our customers that it absolutely can. And then the deliverable and what's the next deliverable. So they know what they're getting into, and they know that it's you've put some thought and time and effort into not wasting their time. A really cool trick that our CEO came up with on the subject line component of it is this going to be valuable to them when they just read that headline of the meeting? And you can say, all right, Ariana, would you like to have a Scott Ariana sync?
No, I see those on my calendar all the time. And first of all, it's how the heck did that get there? And who are you? Like, who is this? So sometimes it's when you jump on a curiosity and you're like, why are you here? And you're like, I don't know, why are you here? But also that doesn't set your team up for success. If I'm booking meetings that just say prospect name / my name sync, what's my goal? Like,
or even if you say intro, like, Ariana, chronological intro. Okay, the last thing I need is another intro. But if you're going to say evaluation of event follow-up process, that's interesting. Okay, ChronoLogic might help me with this. Even if I don't buy something from them, I may learn something, or at least have a new network to bounce ideas off of. So this should be used just in general with internal meetings, let alone your sales meetings. So we can go past this one, but just wanted to throw it out there since it was asked.
Sure. No, it was a great point to jump that in there. So let me get back. Oh, come on, Zoom, work with me. I feel like we all fight the Zoom every now and then.
Yeah. All right. And just the closing thought on this one is, now obviously we offer this solution, but before I joined ChronoLogic at the beginning of the year, I was actually experimenting with this on my own with my own SDR teams, and going through a pilot, and it actually was so impressive to me that I changed the conversation into one that was to join the team as opposed to just buy the solution. But what ends up happening is, when you do this at scale, the AI negotiates time as well. We're finding with our customers, 80% of people will actually accept, or 80% of the time, I should say, 85% or 80% of the time, that first meeting you propose, as long as it's not like that day or next day. If it's like 1, 2, 3 days out, they will accept that time frame that you propose. And we're finding it's actually less than like 2 or 3% that go beyond that first back and forth negotiation, and it's always a one click for them. The good part is, again, it's a one click for the buyer. There's no conversation. There's no catching me out of the blue to have a conversation with an SDR, and there's no responding to an email. There's also no, for the buyer, clicking a link-based scheduler, and then as an executive, opening up my calendar, opening up their calendar, and saying, okay, for this, 20-something junior rep, I'm going to now do the work of booking the meeting on their behalf. No, I just want to click once if you show value, and I'll meet you on that day. For the buyer or seller's experience, they wake up in the morning and they see 5 new meetings booked on their calendar, as opposed to a queue that has 5 leads with 10 tasks each on how they should prospect to them. Now they can start prepping for meetings, as opposed to blocking time out to chase leads.
Yep. So then when you bring all of this together, and then you're actually seeing the results of it. And I loved when you brought this to me too, of Fortune 500 company using intent and calendar first effectively lead to meeting conversion in less than a week. Meeting to lead conversion in less than a week. So that's from your first send to them. Just out of curiosity, and I was trying to build a poll earlier, but I didn't quite figure it out. Just pop it in the chat. How long is your sales sequence, your average sales week sequence? Is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 3 weeks or more than a month? Because it is going to vary depending on what it is. However, I know from the campaigns that we run at Sales Intel, if you come in through one specific channel, you're a high intent person for me, and we're going to be reaching out to you fast and often. Of course, providing value all the way. Please do not spam people. That is not what we're saying. But really breaking all of this stuff down to where it makes it work. 16, 18 months pre-2020. Wow. There's a long sales cycle there.
Yeah, and sales cycle. And I think the other thing we want to look at is your prospecting cycle from lead to meeting. Like, how long does it take your AEs or SDRs to land that first meeting? I know my sequences were always around 8-ish steps over the course of 10 business days or 2 weeks was what I was always going for before I learned about this process. And it was a combination of calls and emails and LinkedIn messages. Some were manual, some were automated. But you know, it takes time to build those. It takes time to work with sales to write those out, to block time off for the reps who are already working deals from your last campaign and trying to get stuff into the pipeline to make room for the new ones coming in. And that all takes time.
Yep.
So this is great. And with this process where you're using that intent, it's not meant for cold lists. So I won't steal your thunder on this first bullet here, Ariana.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you're able to get this conversion time down, means your ABM programs and intent leads are increasing the pipeline. That means you have found the Holy Grail and you have found the right mix of signals, and then put that into your processes to find the gold.
Yep. And if you would have told me when I first started my sales career in the early to single digit 2000s and said, hey, I could give you a list of people who are already looking at your solution, I would have said that's the most amazing thing. What kind of magic or witchcraft are you using to figure that out with? Right, that type of thing wasn't even there. So the fact that you have that, it's being used readily. Don't ignore that. Because in not only using calendar first approach, but in any sales or marketing motion, that should be one of the core elements of your programs. And that's just talking as a marketer who's used intent for the last several years. And then when your SDRs are spending more time in those meetings using this approach, they are becoming expert value creators in those discovery calls. And instead of being experts at, you know, meeting setters. I know some companies even say, well, that's kind of what we need them to do, and their goals are actually set off setting that meeting. But that wasn't the original intent. To use Ariana's vernacular earlier, we've kind of lost our way to where the whole point was for this SDR to create the value and be experts at these like 7 use cases or 5 use cases that your lists are facing and experiencing. But we've kind of focused so much now on the getting the meeting booked, they are not as good at the former, which is what the original intent was. So what we're trying to do as well as a side benefit is get those SDRs to become more valuable, and actually then they become better AEs later on.
Yeah, exactly. So it all comes back down to the 2 things that we started with and that we'll end with, of knowing when your prospect is ready to meet. That is the general line there. But again, the when always comes back to the intent data and understanding the buying signals of your organization. And that could be industry news. That could be your target account just got like big series funding and now they have the budget to use your solution. That's a great reason to try to book a meeting with someone. Again, you've heard me mention visitor intel, people coming to your website but not interacting. That's a great way to do retargeting. Why not go after those people again? They came into your website to begin with, so they're there for a reason. And then again, intent data, which is the more like higher level of actual the co-op signals of this is a person or an account that is actively searching for a solution or for your competitor or in the space. And there are keywords that you can use within that as well.
Yep. And then my bullet, I won't beat a dead horse with this one, but the reason that's really an awful slogan, by the way. I don't know why that just came out, but I'll think of a better one to use next time around. That's a little bit more kind, I guess. But I won't reiterate anything I've said already. I would just say to some of the people, including myself, the naysayers of this tactic early on, if you're willing to have, who say, that's too presumptive to just send the calendar invite. Well, if you're willing to have an SDR interrupt your executive buyer's day with a cold call out of the blue and train them to borrow 37 seconds of their time, you should be more than willing to put a valuable calendar invite in front of them because it's just much more courteous.
Yeah, no, because and that was something I remember hearing about this first, because I almost had the knee-jerk reaction of, oh, well, they're putting something on my calendar. Well, they don't know if I'm not available. But also it's much easier to see all the information, to see the value add, and then very quickly tell you yes or no there, than to go on the phone and have the very awkward, yes, this is me. This is Ariana. Why are you calling me? What do you want? So it gives you a little bit better insight there.
Yeah.
So with that, let's go back one. Tell you, the Zoom is getting me today. Move into our official Q&A element, and we've got quite a few questions in here already. So Scott, go ahead and pick one out.
All right, I'm just having to scroll back up. What platforms implement automatic calendar invites at scale? I'm just going to turn into VP marketing for Chronologic instead of evangelist for doing things differently and say Chronologic is the only platform that can do that. And it's the only one that can do it at scale with AI negotiation. The only other way to do it at this point, which is actually not a best practice, it just can't be scaled because you only have so much time on the calendar. The way our platform does it, it doesn't lock out one meeting for one spot. It kind of books multiple meetings on one time spot. And then when one of those 2 or 3 folks accepts, it sends a rescheduling notice to the other one. So that's how the scalability works. But Chronologic is the lone platform who does that. And we have mega Fortune 500 companies who use us, with hundreds of reps down to teams of 20 that use us. That example, I won't give the name of the company, but that booked meetings within 1 week, it was actually 800 meetings in 1 week. But that was with a team that has, over 1,000 sales reps. So it's all relative, right?
Yeah. And I love this one. I'm going to jump over here. What do you do if they decline the meeting with no response? Try again.
That's great. So that's where I say the nurturing programs, like we are a customer of a sales engagement platform. We, of those 3 there that I listed, we use one of them. And if they decline, we send a message that it's all from the rep's email, and they can see everything that's going on. So it's not blind to them. But we say, did you really want to decline? Or is there a better time that will work for you? If they decline again, or they don't respond after our workflow ends, then we just update a field in Salesforce or HubSpot, and then you trigger your nurture stream off of that and start sending them a little bit more content. You warm them up. You can even trigger them over into your standard nurture flows that are just unique or what you want to build as your own nurturing. And that there is still a process and a need for that, but this just makes sure that you get your highest intent buyers on the hook in a conversation faster.
No, it's a good point. And I'll go back to a question that was asked earlier is, can intent be tracked to a specific buyer? Because that feeds into, if they're declining the meeting, then maybe intent wasn't there. Honestly, when it comes to intent data, you're much better looking at that from an account level. If you are trying to track a specific person, it's going to get really messy and it's going to be very difficult to track. if you can say, hey, someone from Acme Corp came to my website, cool, someone there is interested, let me go find the decision makers in my system. So that is how you would go through that. So it's less about the individual and think of it more as like the company level. I hope that answers that question. All right, let's see. What else do we have in the questions for us? Do you ever use video in the invite? And if so, does it increase acceptance?
I can address that. Do you want to? I can take the first hack. So I think video is great. I've used several different video platforms to do this. Everything from Vidyard to Wistia to I'm probably leaving out a bunch. I probably should have named them, but there's some other platforms that actually have video components in them that aren't core to video. But I think that it does add personalization. Those platforms help you scale. I've found just through managing my own SDRs that it does take time because people become very conscious of it and people try and make it too perfect. So I think if you are going to do this and you do want to have teams make their own videos for messages, that you should let them know that it's okay to be candid, to stumble over your words, to just do a whole bunch of minute time block and then send them out. And if they're not perfect, that almost adds to the authenticity of it. You can also make a really one nice canned version, and then the rep can use that one across different channels. But I think you can kind of tell that it's not specifically for them.
Yeah.
So my A/B tests show that the personalization is the best. I've actually seen video that works even more effectively after the demo call, after the discovery call. So it's more of a recap of what just happened in that call, and it provides a way for your champion to more properly and uniformly relay that message across the rest of the company. Just some insights that have nothing to do with this presentation, but I do see value in there in those different scenarios.
Yeah, no, completely agree. That was my background when I first came into the SaaS industry, was video. And yes, big proponent of it, being authentic and being yourself and reminding someone on the receiving end of that you are in fact a human. We forget sometimes. You'll see messages come through and you're like, oh, what's this? But no, it's a person. More times than not, it's a person, unless you're doing a lot of automation. But yeah, building that authenticity through that, because people will buy from people they trust, not just from nameless emails.
Agree.
Yep. Okay, so then we've got a couple of questions. Some very much around specifics to Chronologic, but we'll start at the top here, which is, could you go into more detail about how the time negotiation works? I think my team has been concerned before about being intrusive with this kind of approach, and assuming that's a blank space on their calendar means the prospect is free at that time for sure.
Yep. So first thing, you want to make sure that your reps, when you're using the automation version of this, that your reps are blocking out their lunch breaks, or when they're dropping their child off at daycare, or those types of things when you just can't take a call. So you have to just make sure you're conscious of the white space in your calendar. As far as the negotiation goes, how we do it is, if they, within the G Suite, if they propose a new time just within the actual Google Calendar, if you both have Google Calendars, our platform will recognize that new time and align it back and just send the invite off immediately. The other way to do it is we have actually a natural language processor that can handle, we strength test this, or whatever you want to call it. We test this to some pretty extreme scenarios for what messages could come back in just a reply. If they don't accept or decline or anything, they just reply and say, next Tuesday between 3 and 5, or next Tuesday at 3 or 1:30. And it can interpret that, turn that into the data that it needs to send out a new invite, and it'll send out a new invite. A funny story with one of our new reps is he was prospecting to someone, and the calendar hit them, and they accepted or proposed a new time just through natural language. And they had a conversation back and forth 2 times, And on the third message back, he responded, "Wait a minute, is this Jordan or is this actually the Chronologic tool?" And he ended up booking a time on that next round, and they had a good laugh about it, that it wasn't actually Jordan. So that is how we like to approach it, and making sure that we really strengthen the fact that the reps don't have to use a new software. They don't log into anything. The only change they have to make is making sure they block off times that they really can't have meetings booked for them. And when they wake up in the morning or when they log back into their computer on Monday morning, they see that they have X number of new meetings on their calendar that they can now prepare for.
Awesome. A couple other questions for you, Scott. So we've got a few around what the calendar invite actually looks like. There's a couple of questions around this, so bear with me as I try to surmise all of them. If I missed one, put it in the chat. I'll get back to it. What does the calendar invite actually look like? Do they have the ability, like in a Calendly or a Chili Piper, where you can pick your time, or is it just one time that's available? Let's see. I've got
Yep.
those
So
ones.
what we have is a prepackaged invite. It's a prepackaged invite with message. And if you want, I'm just pulling up on my computer. I didn't have this up because I didn't know if we were going to go over it, but I will share my screen if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it. And Scott, I know I don't have anything after this, so if we will be here as long as you guys are asking questions.
So this is what it ends up looking like. I'm just going to move some things off my screen. So this would be like if Gartner was prospecting to me, they have a thing called a cool vendor category intro. So, oh, okay. So they want to talk to me about being included in the cool vendor category. That's cool. Then I want to go ahead and have that meeting. I'll click yes, and then I just get accepted. Down below, if even that alone on this one, probably that alone would do it for me. But I would just read down here what the message is. And then when they accept the invite, our tool actually has a place where you create what is going to be in the invite for placing the agenda. And then this is the message that gets placed with it. So it's just right there in line. It shows up on their inbox as this when they open it. They can also just look over on their calendar and just accept the invite.
Yeah, and so would that be send with specific date and times to prospects within 3 days as well? Sorry, I was partially listening, trying to make sure we get all the questions answered.
Yep. So there's field merges in here. So whatever time that's selected, you can say insert time here into the sentence. If there's first name field merges, just like an email, except because it's a calendar invite, it feels a little bit more personable. And then as far as like the times and teams that it would book out for, we basically just have like 3 or 4 sliders that you say, I want to have this much of a buffer in between meetings. I want to have the meeting be this length. I want the meetings to be booked between 0 to 30 days out. So say I have, and it's to this team. So I would select my drop-down list for my SDR team. My handful of SDRs pops up in the view, and I can individually turn 1 or 2 off if we want. You can assign the leads round robin or based on lead assignment if the lead assignment's already there, and then set your parameters on, if there's 500 leads from a show that you or attended your session at a massive trade show, then you would say, okay, well, there's not enough time in the day to put it all in one day. So maybe that one with that many leads with a team of 6 or something, I would put it like from 3 to 30 days out, just so that there's enough time on the calendar to book everyone. So those are the types of things that we do to manage that.
And then the example that you showed us, it was a Gmail example, but do you also integrate with other schedulers or like other
with Outlook? Yeah.
Outlook?
Yep. So Microsoft's email exchange and with Google, it's a one-click OAuth to link the two together, just like you would any other OAuth application. And It just,
Yep.
the meetings show up. Yeah. And the only thing that doesn't work with Microsoft is if they propose a time, the platform actually has to, the rep would have to go in and look to see what that is, or if they use natural language, then it would just propose a new time. But it wouldn't
Gotcha.
accept the propose a new time from outreach, but it does notify the rep to say, hey, here, it's a warning, a notification that says this person is on Microsoft and wants to propose a new time using Microsoft's proposal.
Gotcha.
That's very rare that happens. So almost everyone accepts that first meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, and feel free to jump through the Q&As too,
Yeah.
like any of them that you see. One is, what are typical response rates? I assume
Yep.
for the calendar, like what are the actual acceptance rates?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. Well, because I was skeptical of that too. We have a case study on it. So one of our customers increased their meetings booked by 70%, and their closed won deal rate from those meetings only decreased, I think, 2 percentage points. It went from like 21% close win rate to 19% close win rate. And then as it regards to do those meetings actually hold, we found that it is within like a 5-ish% to 10 at most percentage range of what your current meeting acceptance rate is. So if you're currently, you know, booking or having 60% of the meetings that you book actually show up, I would not expect it to go from our data any less than half of 50%. If you're at 40% meeting acceptance rate, I would assume it would drop to maybe 35%, and that's on the low end. For many of our customers, it actually increases.
Gotcha. So then we're also getting a lot of questions about how Calendar First then works with other elements. So one of the question is, how many calls would you make in a day apart from the mails and LinkedIn that we send, and then also around how calendar invites can be used in sequences. And I'll go ahead and jump on this at the first of it, which is, it's not calendar only, it's calendar first. So if you are wanting to leverage your intent data to try to get on the calendar of the people that have the highest likelihood of actually accepting and buying from you at that time, then that's one strategy that you can use.
Yep, exactly. And it is calendar first. We, like I said, we include nurture streams. Most of our customers and me base the triggers off of just HubSpot and Salesforce field updates. When one sequence, when the two-step calendar sequence is done, then it kicks over and nurtures them again. And if you want to mix phone calls in there with your sales engagement platform and go at it the traditional way after that meeting invite, you certainly can. A lot of our customers do. If you're trying to, we have a case study also from Worsta, who's a Google channel partner. They were scaling a new AE team, and a new SDR team was still being implemented. And so they're like, well, our revenue goals haven't gone away, and we have all these partners that we have to fill leads for. So they actually used it to supplement their pipeline while they were ramping, because they just didn't have time to train people to prospect. They only had time to train people on their messaging. And so they're like, well, why don't we just take these engaged folks and just calendar first them? And it actually works so well that they now keep this as part of their just standard prospecting process.
Awesome. That's really cool. All right, we're getting a lot of technical questions, all of the like very specific of who do you integrate with, how is the pricing based on, can you join with a like join.me link, any of those questions that you have in the recap emails tomorrow, just shoot us back. We're going to be on those. I'll go ahead and put our contact information up here so you guys can take a look at it. Just shoot us an email. We're more than happy to answer those more specific ones. But then also one that I think is really good that we actually hadn't touched on yet, Scott, is how long do you suggest the calendar invite for that first meeting should be?
Yeah, we typically do 30 minutes on almost everything as far as like that first that first meeting based on your intent data and the engagement data you have. And then if it's a more specific campaign, like maybe you're working in the channel and it's a channel partner, maybe it's you're trying to book your QBRs, or you're trying to, and so that your CSMs don't have to go do QBR prospecting. Those will be an hour.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Any other general broad questions? You guys want to pop in? So give you one more second. Going once. Going twice. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining. Like I said, this is recorded. You will be getting an email recap tomorrow with the deck and the recording. In that should be very easy for you guys to find. And again, if you have any additional questions for us, please reach out to us and we'll get you to the right people. So thanks again. And thanks, Scott, for joining us. And it's been awesome. I can't wait to chat with you later.
Thank you. See you, everyone.
All right. Bye, guys.